What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of Lunch with Lattice. I'm your host, Lattice. So today we were eating a buffalo chicken wrap from Nella's Pizza in downtown Reading. Very good. And you know how you know it's good? Because I ate it, the entire thing, in about 7 minutes. Sitting here, prepping for this video, looking over some notes, trying to figure out what I'm actually going to talk about. And I look down, and our lunch is gone. So, sorry I ate it without you guys, but I was super hungry, so what are you going to do? All right, guys, so today we're talking about cap rate. I'm going to explain this as simple as possible, just so it's very easy to understand. If you're in real estate, one way or another, you've probably heard of cap rate. If you want to get into real estate, you absolutely need to know what cap rate is because it's how you figure out if it's a good deal or a bad deal. So it's the rate of return you're going to receive on a property based on the yearly income. And how you get this is you take your yearly income and you divide it by the purchase price of the property. So let's say you have an NOI, net operating income. You're not taking your gross, you're going to be taking your net operating income. So it's your yearly income on a property minus your expenses. So let's say it's a $10,000 a year net income on a property. You're buying this property for $100,000. You take $10,000 divided by $100,000 and you get a 10 cap or 10% capitalization rate. All right, it's important to note that a cap rate does not include a mortgage payment. So this calculation, cap rate, is based off of if you're buying a property cash. Now, if you're going to have a mortgage on there, then you have to figure out something else. It's called a cash on cash return. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So in a cap rate, you could see a 4 cap. You could see a 15 cap. But your cap rate is really going to depend on the area. So you go downtown Boston, for example. Say you want to buy a multifamily or you want to buy a condo. Your cap rate in downtown Boston, it's a nicer area, more established. You're always going to have renters there. It's going to be a lower cap rate than somewhere outside the city. Let's say 5, 10, 15, 20 miles outside the city, your cap rate is going to increase. So what might be a 4 or 5 cap in downtown Boston could be 10, 12, maybe 15 cap outside of the city, way outside of the city. All right. So what's the reason for this? Why in some well-established, very nice areas are the cap rates lower than a not-so-great area, a war zone? Well, it's because the higher your return, the higher risk. It's like with any investment. The less risky, the lower return you're going to get. Now, a property in downtown Boston, there's not a lot of risk to it. You know there's always going to be renters there. It's a very well-established area. It's going to be pretty expensive. So, less risk, less return. But let's say you go outside the city. Maybe you're a first-time investor in a certain area and there's not a ton of investors out there. Or maybe the area just hasn't blown up yet. So, in the future, you have confidence that this area is going to be very nice. Let's take Salem, Massachusetts, for example. That's where I do a lot of investing. So, you look at Salem 10 years ago. It was riskier. It wasn't as established. There weren't a lot of new developments. So in 2018, I bought my property at a 10 cap. Great. Outstanding. 10 cap is very, very good for Massachusetts. Now, if I turn around to sell it today, I would be selling it at a 7 cap, an 8 cap. If I renovated everything and it was turnkey, maybe it would be a 6 cap. But 10 years ago, I wasn't investing in Salem 10 years ago. 10 years ago in Salem, your cap rate was much higher than it is today. So let's go back to what I mentioned before. If you're like me, you're probably not buying all your properties cash. I like to leverage. I like to get as much leverage as possible. That way I keep my cash in my pocket just in case. So the downside of cap rate is there's some limitations. It does not take into consideration amortization of your loan. It doesn't take into consideration appreciation. So there are some limitations on it. But if you have a mortgage on a property, like me, I don't buy cash, then you need to figure out the cash on cash return for a property. And this is what's gonna include your monthly mortgage payment. Now, cash on cash return is very similar to a cap rate, but it gives you the opportunity to take into consideration your amortization structures, your down payment, the type of loan you're getting, and your interest rate. So how do you calculate cash on cash return? Well, first you take your yearly cash flow and you divide that by your down payment. So for simple numbers, let's say you have a $10,000 a year influx of cash. You have a $5,000 a year mortgage. So you subtract the $5,000 from the $10,000 and $1,000 in taxes. Nice and easy, right? So that's $10,000 minus $6,000. So we're using $4,000 as your cash flow. Then you take your down payment. So if you're buying a $100,000 property with 20% down, that's $20,000. So $20,000, that's your down payment. You divide it into your cash flow. So it's $4,000 cash flow divided by $20,000. This is going to give you a 20% cash on cash return. Holy crap, 20% cash on cash return, that's ridiculous. Yes, but it's different than cap rate. So you might be having a 8% cap rate, but a 20% cash on cash return. Why is that? It's because paying a mortgage actually increases your cash on cash return, but it also increases your risk. Now you might ask, John, why does having a mortgage increase my risk? Great question. Well, think about it. If you buy a property cash, you own nothing on it. You're not paying the bank. But if you buy it with a mortgage, you have a monthly payment to make every single month, right? Now, let's go back to this $100,000 property. We're gonna say it's a single family. So you have to pay your monthly mortgage every single month. But if your tenant, your one tenant, since it's a single family, they move out, you have no more income from that property. So now you're reaching in your pocket to pay that mortgage. What if you can't fill that vacancy for 5, 6, 7 months? Then every single month, 5, 6, 7 months, you're paying the mortgage, you're paying the mortgage. Now, if that takes away all your cash reserves, you could be looking at bankruptcy. You could be looking at foreclosure. So that's why it's risky. For me, I love having a mortgage on the property because I keep my cash reserves. But in any type of investment, the higher the return means the higher the risk. So I didn't want to go too deep into cash on cash return, but I feel like it's very important when trying to understand cap rate. But all you need to know is that most of the time when you're looking at an investment, you're going to be going off the cap rate. If the cap rate makes sense, then the next step, if you're taking out a mortgage, is the cash on cash return. So remember, cap rate is extremely important in real estate investing. It's your net operating income divided by the purchase price of the property. All right? Go out there, figure out some cap rates, practice. That's the biggest thing in this industry. Run your numbers over and over and over. You might not feel confident right now going out to buy a property, but I promise you, if you run the numbers on 100, 200 properties, you're gonna feel so confident when you go out to buy a property. It's unbelievable. So that is everything for today, guys. Appreciate you. And as always, thank you.